Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the human ship Defiant. His hands gripped the metal rail as he stared at the screen in front of him. The image showed what used to be New Geneva Colony. Now it was just melted glass and twisted metal. 3 million people had lived there yesterday. Today there was nothing but death. "Sir, we're getting more reports," said Lieutenant Ben Carter from his station. His young face was pale and his voice shook. The Council fleet hit 12 more colonies. In the Outer Rim, no survivors anywhere. Jake closed his eyes for a moment. New Geneva had been his home before he joined the Earth fleet. His sister Mary had lived there with her 2 children. Now they were all gone, turned to ash by alien weapons he had never seen before. Dr. Lisa Wright worked at her computer near the back of the bridge. She was humanity's best scientist when it came to alien technology. Her fingers moved fast across the keyboard as she studied the attack data. What she found made her stomach turn. "Jake, you need to see this," Lisa called. "Out." Her voice was quiet but urgent. Jake walked over to her station. On her screen were alien words and symbols. Lisa had been learning Council languages for 10 years. She could read their secret messages. "This wasn't random," she said, pointing at the text. "Look at these communication logs I pulled from the wreckage. The Council has been planning this for 20 years. They call it the Human Containment Protocol." Jake read over her shoulder. Even through the alien writing, the meaning was clear. The Galactic Council was afraid of humans. They thought humans grew too fast and spread too far. They didn't like that humans refused to follow their rules about who could live where. "They're scared of us," Jake said. It wasn't a question. "Terrified," Lisa replied. "According to this, we're the first species in 3,000 years that they couldn't control. We don't fit into their system. We don't stay in our assigned space. We don't bow down to their leaders." Ben looked up from his station again. "Sir, I'm getting a priority message from Earth. Admiral Sullivan wants to speak with you right away." The main screen flickered and showed the face of Admiral Kate Sullivan. She was 60 years old with gray hair and hard eyes. She had fought in 3 wars before humans even knew aliens existed. Now she commanded all of Earth's defense forces. "Morrison?" she said. Her voice was cold and controlled. "I assume Dr. Wright has briefed you on what she found." "Yes, ma'am, the Council planned this genocide." "That's correct. And it's about to get worse." Admiral Sullivan's image shifted to show a star map. Red dots marked enemy ships. There were hundreds of them. Long-range sensors show 47 Council battle groups moving toward human space. That's over 2,000 alien warships. Jake felt his blood turn cold. The human fleet had maybe 300 ships total. They were completely outnumbered. "They think this will be easy," Admiral Sullivan continued. "They believe humans will surrender after seeing what happened to New Geneva. They expect us to beg for mercy and accept whatever terms they offer." "Will we?" Jake asked. Admiral Sullivan smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Morrison, how long have humans been members of the Galactic Council?" 40 years, ma'am. "And in those 40 years, have we ever shown them our full military capability?" Jake thought about it. Humans had always tried to be peaceful. When they joined the Council, they agreed to limits on their weapons and ship designs. They wanted to prove they could be trusted. "No, ma'am. We've always held back." "Exactly. We've been the polite junior members. We've followed their rules and stayed in our designated areas. We've been good little humans who know their place." Admiral Sullivan's smile grew wider and more dangerous. "But they just killed 3 million of our people. They crossed a line that should never be crossed." On his sensor station, Ben was tracking the approaching enemy fleets. "Admiral, the first Council ships will reach our outer colonies in 6 days." "Perfect timing," Admiral Sullivan said. "Morrison, you and Dr. Wright are ordered to return to Earth immediately. We're activating protocols that have been classified since before you were born." "What protocols?" Jake asked. "The ones we hoped we'd never need. For 40 years, the Council has seen us as we wanted them to see us. Peaceful explorers who prefer diplomacy to war. They have no idea what humans are really capable of when we stop playing nice." Lisa looked up from her computer. "Admiral, I'm seeing massive troop movements on Earth and Mars, and there's some kind of energy buildup around Luna Station. Dr. Wright, you're about to learn why human scientists have been classified as the most dangerous researchers in the galaxy. We've just been very good at hiding it. The communication ended, leaving the bridge of the Defiant in silence. Jake looked around at his crew. They were all young, all eager to serve humanity among the stars. None of them had ever seen real war. Ben, set course for Earth. Maximum speed. Yes, sir. As the ship turned toward home, Jake thought about his dead sister and her children. He thought about the 3 million people who had died because aliens were afraid of human potential. The Council thought they could wipe out humanity like they had destroyed so many other species. They were about to learn that humans were different. Humans didn't break when attacked. They didn't surrender when outnumbered. When someone hurt their families, humans became something the galaxy had never seen before. Lisa came to stand beside him. Jake, I've been analyzing the weapons they used on New Geneva. The energy output is incredible. Whatever they hit us with, it's beyond anything in our current arsenal. Then we'll have to be smarter, Jake replied. Humans have always been good at that. Outside the ship's windows, the stars looked the same as they always had, but Jake knew everything had changed. The galaxy was about to see what happened when you pushed humanity too far. The Council had made their choice. Now, they would live with the consequences, or die with them. President Alex Thompson stood at the podium in the United Earth Assembly. Every seat was filled. Representatives from every human colony and space station watched him with angry, determined faces. The news of New Geneva had reached every corner of human space. My fellow humans, Alex began, his voice carrying across the chamber and to every human world in the galaxy. For 40 years, we have been the junior partners in the Galactic Council. We have followed their rules. We have stayed in our assigned territories. We have been grateful for their guidance. He paused and looked directly into the camera that broadcast his words across human space. That ends today. The chamber erupted in cheers and applause. Alex waited for silence before continuing. The Council believes we are weak because we choose peace. They think we are helpless because we prefer diplomacy. They have made the greatest mistake in galactic history. They have awakened something that has been sleeping for 40 years. In a secure bunker beneath Geneva, General Ryan Brooks sat in front of dozens of computer screens. His fingers moved across holographic controls as he activated systems that had been hidden since humanity first joined the galactic community. Project Valkyrie is now active, he announced to his staff. Begin Phase 1 implementation. Around him, military officers who had spent their entire careers preparing for this moment sprang into action. For 4 decades, while the Council saw humans as peaceful explorers, human military scientists had been working in secret. They had been preparing for the day when humanity might need to defend itself against superior alien technology. On Luna Station, engineer Maria Santos watched as massive construction platforms emerged from hidden bays beneath the moon's surface. These weren't the simple mining stations the Council thought they were. They were weapons factories that had been disguised for 40 years. Kinetic bombardment platforms coming online, Maria reported to General Brooks. First battery will be ready for deployment in 18 hours. While the Council relied on energy weapons and plasma cannons, humans had taken a different approach. They had studied physics instead of exotic matter. They had learned to turn simple mass into devastating weapons. The beauty of kinetic weapons, Maria explained to her engineering team, is that they're almost impossible to defend against. You can't shoot down a tungsten rod moving at 20% of light speed. You can't detect it until it's too late. It's just physics doing what physics does. Captain Nick Johnson received his new orders while docked at Mars Station. His ship, the Retribution, was one of 12 vessels chosen for humanity's first strike. He read the mission briefings with growing amazement. "We're really going to do this?" asked his second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Mills. "According to these orders, yes. We're going to show the Council what human warfare looks like when we stop holding back." Nick's fleet launched from Mars 3 days after the President's speech. Their target was the Council's staging area at Kepler 442. where 200 alien warships were gathering for the invasion of human space. The Council expected humans to meet them in traditional space combat. Ships would face each other at medium range. Energy weapons would be fired. Shields would be tested. Eventually, one side would break and retreat. They had no idea what was coming. Dr. Amy Foster monitored galactic communications from her post on Luna Station. She listened to Council military channels as they prepared for what they thought would be an easy victory. "Their confidence is incredible," she reported to Admiral Sullivan. "They're discussing how to divide up human territories after the war. They've already decided which species gets which human worlds." "Let them plan," Admiral Sullivan replied. "In 72 hours, they're going to learn that humans don't lose wars, we end them." On Earth, weapons that had been theoretical for decades became reality. Human scientists had spent 40 years studying every piece of alien technology they could find. They had learned how Council shields worked. They had discovered the weaknesses in alien armor. They had found ways to turn human creativity into overwhelming military advantage. The first test came when Captain Johnson's fleet reached Kepler 442. The Council ships were arranged in a traditional battle formation. Their commanders were experienced veterans who had conquered dozens of worlds. "Contact in 10 minutes, Sarah reported from her station. "Enemy fleet is moving to intercept. They're hailing us." "Put them through," Nick ordered. The alien commander appeared on screen. He was tall and blue with 4 arms and too many teeth. When he spoke, his words were translated by the ship's computer. "Human vessels, you are ordered to surrender immediately. Your resistance is pointless. Submit now and—" "Your deaths will be quick," Nick smiled. "Tell him we decline his generous offer." The alien's expression changed to confusion, then anger. "You cannot hope to defeat us. We outnumber you 20 to 1. "You're absolutely right," Nick replied. "You do outnumber us. But you've made one crucial mistake." "What mistake?" "You think this is going to be a fair fight." Nick cut the communication and turned to his weapons officer. "Fire when ready." What happened next would be studied by military historians for centuries. The human ships didn't fire energy weapons. They didn't launch missiles. Instead, they released clouds of small objects that looked like space debris. The Council ships barely noticed them. Their sensors showed no energy signatures, no explosive warheads, just chunks of metal drifting through space. They realized their mistake when the first tungsten rod hit the flagship at 17% of light speed. The massive alien battleship simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, shields up, and weapons charging. The next moment there was only expanding plasma and metal fragments. Then the second rod hit, and the third, and the 20th. The Council's third fleet had been reduced to scrap metal in 47 seconds. 200 of their most advanced warships destroyed by what amounted to rocks thrown really, really hard. The few surviving alien ships tried to retreat, but they were already too late. Human pursuit ships were faster than anything the Council had ever seen. They used engines based on principles the aliens had never imagined. Dr. Foster listened to the panicked communications from the fleeing Council ships. For the first time in galactic history, alien commanders were reporting a complete tactical defeat at human hands. "Admiral," she reported to Sullivan, "the survivors are broadcasting warnings to all Council forces. They're calling humans impossible and insane. They can't understand how we destroyed their fleet so quickly." Admiral Sullivan nodded with satisfaction. "Good. Fear is a valuable weapon, and they haven't seen anything yet." President Thompson received the battle report in his office. The first engagement was a complete success. Human losses, 0. Council losses, total. Phase 1 complete, he announced to the assembled military leadership. Phase 2 begins immediately. General Brooks, you may proceed with the liberation campaigns. "Yes, Mr. President. Our next targets are the slave worlds. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity really stands for." The war was far from over, but the tone had been set. The Council had awakened something they couldn't understand or control. Humanity was no longer the junior partner begging for acceptance. They were the storm that was about to sweep across the galaxy. 6 months had passed since the battle at Kepler 442. The galaxy was learning a new phrase that struck fear into alien hearts. Human space. Where once there had been contested borders and careful negotiations, there was now an expanding sphere of absolute human control. Colonel Steve Parker stood on the bridge of his assault ship as it approached Tau Ceti. The planet below had been a council slave world for 300 years. The native Kalari people had been forced to mine rare minerals for their alien masters. Now it was time for liberation. "Orbital defenses are responding to our approach," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Dan Hayes. 24 plasma platforms and a garrison fleet of 30 ships. Standard council setup, Steve replied calmly. They still haven't learned. Execute Liberation Protocol 7. What happened next had become routine for human forces, but it still amazed their enemies. Instead of engaging the orbital platforms directly, human ships released swarms of micro-drones. Each drone was no bigger than a baseball, but they carried enough explosive power to cripple a battleship. The drones moved in perfect coordination, like a school of fish made from metal and circuits. They slipped past the plasma blasts and found the weak points in every defense platform. Within minutes, the orbital defenses were floating scrap metal. The garrison fleet tried to run, but human pursuit ships were faster. The few aliens who survived would spread word of what they had seen. Humans who fought like no species in galactic history. Down on the planet's surface, the Kalari people emerged from their underground shelters. They had been hiding since the Aubert human ships arrived, expecting another round of violence and oppression. What they found instead changed their understanding of the universe. Human soldiers were handing out food and medical supplies. Human engineers were already working to repair the damage from centuries of strip mining. Human doctors were treating Kalari children who had never seen proper health care. "Why do you help us?" asked Elder Than, the oldest surviving Kalari leader. He spoke through a translation device, his 4 eyes wide with confusion. Steve knelt down to meet the alien elder at eye level. "Because it's the right thing to do. The council told you that humans were violent and dangerous. They were half right. We are dangerous to those who hurt innocent people." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on dozens of worlds. Captain Rachel Morgan led her stealth squadron through the Rigel system, where the council's primary shipyard had been building warships for 8 centuries. Her 12 ships were invisible to alien sensors, using technology that the council's scientists insisted was impossible. "Target acquired," Rachel announced to her team. "The shipyard is exactly where intelligence said it would be. Beginning attack run." The Rigel shipyard was a massive structure, larger than most space stations. It was protected by energy shields and defended by a full battle fleet. The council considered it absolutely secure. They had never faced human swarm tactics. Rachel's ships released clouds of AI-controlled attack drones. Unlike the simple missiles that other species used, these drones could think. They could adapt. They could coordinate with each other in ways that overwhelmed traditional point defense systems. The drones flowed around the shipyard's defenses like water around rocks. They found every weakness, exploited every gap. Within 6 hours, the facility, that had been the pride of the council fleet, was reduced to twisted metal and floating debris. "Shipyard neutralized," Rachel reported. "No human casualties. Beginning withdrawal." The message reached every council world within days. The humans had destroyed their most important military facility without losing a single ship. Back on Earth, Director Paul Adams worked in the diplomatic wing of the United Earth government. While human fleets carved through council forces, human negotiators were offering something the galaxy had never seen: a choice. "Surrender and keep your freedom," Paul explained to the Andromedan ambassador. "Join us and help us build something better. Or keep fighting and face the full weight of human military doctrine." The Andromedans were a proud warrior species who had served the council for 500 years. Their ambassador, a 7-foot-tall reptilian warrior named Seth, looked at Paul with confusion. "You offer us terms?" Seth asked. "We are your enemies. We have killed your people." "Some of you have," Paul agreed. "But most of your people are just following orders from leaders who lied to them. We're not here to punish entire species for the crimes of their governments." Paul showed Seth video footage from liberated worlds. former Council slave species working alongside human engineers to rebuild their planets. Alien children playing with human children in integrated schools. Former enemies becoming friends and allies. This is what we're offering the galaxy, Paul said. Not conquest, liberation, not submission, partnership. Within a week, the Andromedans became the 16th species to switch sides and join the growing human alliance. Chief Engineer Kelly Barnes worked deep beneath the surface of Mars, in laboratories that didn't officially exist. She had been tasked with solving the Council's greatest mystery, the location of their strategic reserve fleet. For over 1,000 years, the Council had maintained a secret backup force hidden somewhere in the galaxy. It was their final insurance, policy, their guarantee that Council authority could never be truly challenged. Kelly's team had been analyzing captured Council data for months. They had studied hyperspace routes, supply manifests, and communication patterns. Finally, they found what they were looking for. Got it, Kelly announced to her team. The reserve fleet is hidden in the Veil Nebula. The nebula's radiation masks their energy signatures, and the gravitational anomalies make hyperspace jumps impossible for normal ships. How many ships are we talking about? Asked her assistant, Dr. Frank Cooper. 200 vessels. Their newest and most advanced designs. If they deploy this fleet, it could turn the tide of the war. Kelly uploaded her findings to Admiral Sullivan's command center. The response came back within an hour. Prepare countermeasures. We end this threat before it can be used against us. 3 days later, Admiral Sullivan herself led a task force toward the Veil Nebula. Her flagship carried humanity's most closely guarded secret, a weapon that even her own officers didn't fully understand. Ma'am, asked Captain Jerry Stone, her second-in-command, how exactly are we supposed to attack a fleet hidden in a nebula that blocks all our sensors? Admiral Sullivan smiled the same cold smile she had shown months earlier. Captain, what do you know about controlled gravitational collapse? I know it's theoretically possible to create artificial black holes, but the energy requirements are enormous. No species has ever actually built such a weapon. No species except humans, Sullivan replied. We've been working on this project for 30 years. Today we find out if it works. The human task force reached the edge of the Veil Nebula and deployed the device. It was smaller than most people expected, about the size of a shuttlecraft. But the energy readings coming from it made every sensor on the fleet go crazy. Gravitational collapse initiated, reported the science officer. Artificial event horizon forming in 3, 2, 1. What happened next could be seen from 3 star systems away. The nebula began to collapse inward, pulled by gravitational forces that had never existed in nature. At its center, a new black hole was born, hungry and growing. The Council's strategic reserve fleet hidden for a millennium was consumed in 18 minutes. 200 of their most advanced ships simply ceased to exist, pulled into a gravitational well of humanity's own creation. The message that went out across the galaxy was simple and clear. Humans could create weapons that violated the laws of physics themselves. The Council's last hope had been erased by forces beyond their comprehension. On the Council homeworld of Zenthari Prime, the ruling body met in emergency session. For 3,000 years, they had been the undisputed masters of the galaxy. Now, they faced an enemy they couldn't understand or defeat. How is this possible? Demanded Councillor Vexhai. They were a primitive species barely 40 years ago. How can they have technology that surpasses our own by centuries? Because, replied Intelligence Director Mordan, we never understood what humans really are. We thought they were just another species to be controlled. We were wrong. They are something the galaxy has never seen before. The Council was beginning to realize the truth. They had awakened something that would not stop until the galaxy was free. The line had been crossed, and there was no going back. The news of the Veil Nebula reached every corner of the galaxy within hours. The Council's strategic reserve fleet, their final insurance against rebellion, was gone. Consumed by a black hole that humans had created and controlled like a simple tool. Ambassador Tony Richards walked through the corridors of the Council's emergency assembly building on Zenthari Prime. His footsteps echoed in halls that had once been filled with the arrogant voices of alien overlords. Now those same aliens whispered in fear as he passed. Behind Tony, holographic projections showed the faces of leaders from 43 different species. These were the worlds that had chosen freedom over council rule. Former slaves who now stood as equals in humanity's growing alliance. "Counselors," Tony announced as he entered the great chamber, "I am not here to negotiate. I am here to deliver terms." The assembled alien leaders looked down at him from their elevated seats. For 3,000 years, other species had begged for mercy in this room. Now a human stood before them with the confidence of absolute victory. "You have 48 hours, Tony continued, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "Surrender all claims to former slave species. Open your archives for war crimes tribunals. Submit to the new galactic order." He paused and smiled. "Or we continue this conversation with kinetic weapons." Counselor Vexhai, a tall insectoid alien with compound eyes, leaned forward in his seat. "You cannot be serious. The Council has ruled this galaxy for millennia. We will not bow to a species that has existed in space for barely 4 decades. Your choice," Tony replied calmly. "Admiral Davis, please show the Council what 48 hours looks like from space." The chamber's main display activated, showing the space around Zenthari Prime. The Council members gasped as they saw the human fleet that surrounded their homeworld. 50,000 vessels, each one carrying weapons that could crack a planet's crust. Lord High Admiral Kim Davis spoke from her flagship, her image appearing next to Tony. "Counselors, my fleet is currently maintaining a defensive perimeter around your world. We are not targeting civilian areas or infrastructure. Yet." "This is madness," sputtered Counselor Morden, his tentacles writhing with agitation. "You would threaten an entire world over political differences?" Admiral Davis's expression hardened. "Counselor, you ordered the genocide of 3 million human civilians. You have enslaved entire species for centuries. You consider billions of sentient beings to be property. Do not lecture us about madness." On the surface of Zenthari Prime, the alien population watched human shuttles landing in their capital city. They expected occupation troops and military governors. Instead, they saw something that confused them completely. Dr. Carl Mitchell stepped off the first shuttle carrying medical supplies and food processors. Behind him came human engineers with construction equipment and teachers with educational materials. "We're here to help," Carl announced to the gathering crowd of aliens. "Your leaders may have declared war on humanity, but you didn't. You're not our enemies." The broadcast of human aid workers helping alien civilians went out across all Council territories. The galaxy watched as human soldiers shared their rations with hungry alien children. Human medics treated wounded Council prisoners with the same care they gave their own troops. On the war-torn world of Vega Station, combat medic Anna Grant was filmed carrying a wounded Council officer to safety while under enemy fire. The alien officer, Lord Commander Veltar, had been left behind by his own troops during a retreat. "Why do you help me?" Veltar asked as Anna bandaged his wounds. "I am your enemy." "You're wounded," Anna replied simply. "That makes you my patient, not my enemy." The image of Anna carrying the alien officer spread across the galaxy's communication networks. It showed something that no species had ever seen before: conquerors who saved their enemies' lives. The psychological impact was devastating to Council. Morale. For 3,000 years they had ruled through fear and brutality. They understood conquest and submission. They had no defense against mercy. Dr. Wright monitored the galactic communication networks from her post on the human fleet flagship. The alien conversations she intercepted revealed a species in complete psychological collapse. "They don't understand us," Lisa reported to Admiral Sullivan. "Their entire worldview is based on the idea that might makes right. When we show mercy to our enemies, it breaks their fundamental understanding of how power works." "Good, Admiral," Sullivan replied. "Confused enemies make mistakes, and the Council has been making mistakes for months. The largest mistake came when the Council attempted one final assault on Earth itself. They gathered the remnants of their military forces, over 3,000 ships, for a desperate attack on humanity's homeworld. They never made it past the asteroid belt. Captain Marcus Webb commanded the defense force that met them near Jupiter. His fleet was outnumbered 10-1, but numbers no longer mattered in this war. Enemy fleet detected, his tactical officer reported. They're using a standard Council battle formation. No innovation, no adaptation to our tactics. They still don't understand, Marcus said sadly. They're fighting yesterday's war with yesterday's tactics. The Council fleet expected the humans to meet them in traditional combat. Instead, they found themselves facing a cloud of invisible stealth ships that appeared and disappeared, like ghosts. Human vessels struck from impossible angles, using weapons that the Council's scientists insisted couldn't exist. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Council's last major fleet was space debris. Humanity's losses: 12 ships damaged, 0 destroyed. Back in the Council chambers, the alien leaders watched their final military force die on the main display. The silence stretched for long minutes as the reality of their situation sank in. "It's over," whispered Councillor Thexai, a reptilian female who had ruled for over 4 centuries. "We've lost everything." Tony Richards stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by holograms of humanity's new allies. Former Council slaves who had chosen freedom. Former Council citizens who had chosen peace over war. "The age of the Council is finished," Tony announced. "But this doesn't have to be the end for your species. Join us. Help us build something better. Prove that you can change." Lord Commander Veltar, the alien officer that Anna Grant had saved, stood up in the gallery reserved for military observers. His arm was still in a human medical sling. "I have seen humans in war," he announced to the chamber. "They are terrible enemies, but I have also seen them in peace. They are magnificent allies. The choice before us is simple: evolution or extinction." One by one, the Council members began to understand. This wasn't just a military defeat. It was the end of their entire way of life. The galaxy would never again accept rule by force and fear. Councillor Vexhai was the first to formally surrender. "The Council yields to human authority," he announced, his voice barely above a whisper. Others followed quickly. Within hours, the government that had ruled the galaxy for 3 millennia was dissolved. Admiral Davis received the surrender documents on her flagship. As she signed the formal end to the war, she thought about the long road ahead. "The fighting is over," she announced to her fleet. "Now the real work begins. We have a galaxy to rebuild." On Earth, President Thompson addressed the human population and their new allies. "Today marks not the end of an enemy, but the beginning of a partnership. We have shown the galaxy our strength. Now we must show them our wisdom." The Council had crossed the line, believing humans would be easy victims. Instead, they had awakened something that would transform the galaxy forever. Not through conquest and fear, but through something far more powerful: hope. The old order was dead. The new order was about to be born. And at its heart would be the simple human belief that every sentient being deserved freedom, dignity, and the chance to reach for the stars. 1 year after the Council's surrender, the galaxy was a place that no one could have imagined. The rigid caste system that had dominated for 3,000 years was gone. In its place stood the Human Accords, a charter of rights that guaranteed freedom and self-determination for every sentient species. President Alex Thompson, now serving as the first Secretary General of the Free Galactic Alliance, stood at the podium of the rebuilt assembly station at Alpha Centauri. The new building was designed by architects from 12 different species, creating something beautiful that no single culture could have imagined alone. "Friends and allies," Alex began, addressing representatives from over 200 worlds. "1 year ago we were enemies. Today we stand together as equals. Tomorrow we reach for the stars as one people." The applause that filled the chamber came from creatures with tentacles, claws, wings, and fins. Species that had been enemies for millennia now worked side by side. The impossible had become reality. Fleet Admiral Jake Morrison, promoted after his service during the war, oversaw the integration of former Council military assets into the new Allied defense forces. The ships that had once carried weapons of oppression now served as exploration vessels and protection fleets. The irony is beautiful, Jake explained to his staff during a planning meeting. The Council built these ships to conquer. We're using them to explore and defend. Same tools, completely different purpose. His second-in-command, Captain Lisa Wright, nodded in agreement. The Andromedans are particularly enthusiastic about the exploration missions. They say it reminds them why they became spacefaring in the first place. The exploration programs were already bearing fruit. Human-led expeditions had made contact with 17 previously unknown civilizations. Each first contact followed the same pattern: approach with respect, offer friendship and aid, never demand submission. It was a philosophy that confused many of the galaxy's older species, but delighted the younger ones. Dr. Carl Mitchell led the Truth and Reconciliation Commission from his headquarters on the former Council homeworld. His team included historians, psychologists, and legal experts from dozens of species. Their job was both simple and monumentally difficult: document the crimes of the old system while building the foundation for lasting peace. The hardest part, Carl explained to a gathering of commission members, isn't cataloging what happened. It's helping entire civilizations understand that there's a different way to live. The Commission's work revealed the true scope of Council oppression. Over 3,000 years, they had enslaved 46 species, strip-mined hundreds of worlds, and systematically destroyed any culture that refused to conform to their rigid hierarchy. But the Commission also documented something else: the incredible resilience of the galaxy's people. Despite centuries of oppression, local cultures had survived. Languages had been preserved in secret. Traditions had been passed down through generations of hidden resistance. Life finds a way, Carl often said. Hope finds a way. Freedom finds a way. General Ryan Brooks established the new Galactic Military Academy on Mars, where officers from hundreds of species learned human military doctrine. The curriculum was revolutionary: overwhelming force applied with precision, devastating; capability tempered by moral restraint. Power without wisdom is tyranny, Brooks explained to his first class of alien cadets. Wisdom without power is helplessness. We teach you both so you can protect what matters. The alien students struggled with human military philosophy at first. They had been raised in a galaxy where strength meant domination. Learning to use strength to protect rather than control was a difficult mental shift. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker, now head of combat training, developed innovative methods to teach these concepts. We run scenarios where the enemy are civilians who need protecting, he explained. It forces students to think differently about what victory means. The results were remarkable. Graduates of the academy didn't just become better soldiers, they became better leaders and better citizens. They returned to their homeworlds carrying human values of service and protection. Engineer Maria Santos stood before the completed Project Prometheus, humanity's first galaxy-class exploration ship. The massive vessel had been built with technology from dozens of allied species, incorporating the best innovations from across the galaxy. She's beautiful, Maria said to her construction team. The ship was indeed magnificent, stretching over 2 kilometers from bow to stern. But its true beauty lay in what it represented: cooperation between species that had been enemies just 2 years earlier. The crew of the Prometheus was equally remarkable. Captain James Taylor commanded a bridge staff that included a Kalari navigator, an Andromedan tactical officer, a former Council engineer, and 3 human specialists. They worked together with an efficiency that amazed even their own commanders. "Ma'am," the Kalari navigator, Thenai, reported to Captain Taylor. "Final preparations are complete. We're ready to begin our mission to the Magellanic Clouds." "Excellent," Taylor replied. "Take us out, navigator. Let's go make some new friends." The Prometheus launched to great fanfare, broadcast across the galaxy. Its mission was to make contact with civilizations beyond the Milky Way, carrying a simple message: the galaxy was free, and they welcomed all peaceful species to join them. Back. On Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan watched the launch from her office in Geneva. At 71, she was considering retirement, but she wanted to see humanity's transformation complete first. "Admiral," her aide announced, "you have a visitor. Lord Commander Veltar is here for his appointment." Sullivan smiled. Veltar had become one of humanity's strongest advocates among former council species. The alien officer whom Anna Grant had saved during the war now served as an ambassador for interspecies cooperation. "Admiral Sullivan," Veltar said as he entered, offering the traditional human handshake that he had learned to appreciate. "I bring greetings from the Centauri colonies. The integration is proceeding better than anyone hoped." "I'm glad to hear it," Sullivan replied. "What's the latest on the rehabilitation programs?" "Remarkable progress. Former council military personnel are adapting well to the new service structure. Many of them say they feel like real soldiers for the first time in their lives." It was true across the galaxy. Military forces that had once existed to oppress now served to protect. Scientists who had once developed weapons of mass destruction now worked on terraforming and medical research. Engineers who had built slave camps now constructed schools and hospitals. Dr. Amy Foster monitored galactic communications from her expanded facility on Luna Station. The messages she intercepted now told a completely different story than they had 2 years earlier. "Listen to this," Amy told her staff, playing a recorded transmission. "It's from a Rigelian trade captain. Human customs officials actually helped us repair our damaged cargo hold. They didn't demand bribes or confiscate our goods. I've never seen anything like it." Similar reports came from across human space. Traders who expected corruption found honest officials. Refugees who expected rejection found open doors. Scientists who expected military secrets found shared knowledge. "The galaxy is learning to trust again," Amy observed. "It's the most remarkable social transformation in recorded history." Ambassador Tony Richards stood in the Memorial Garden on New Geneva, rebuilt and more beautiful than ever. The names of the 3 million who had died were etched in quantum crystal, each one a reminder of the price of freedom. A young Kalari child born free because of human sacrifice placed flowers at the memorial. She couldn't read the human names, but she understood what they meant. Her teacher had explained how these people had died so that others could be free. "Thank you," the child whispered in her native language. Tony wiped a tear from his eye. It had all been worth it. Every battle, every sacrifice, every difficult decision. The galaxy was free, and children like this little Kalari girl would grow up in a universe where slavery and oppression were just tragic stories from the past. As the sun set over New Geneva, Tony reflected on humanity's journey. They had been pushed to the edge of extinction by an enemy that thought they were weak. Instead, that enemy had awakened something that transformed the galaxy forever. The Council had crossed the line, believing humans would break under pressure. They learned too late that humans didn't break when attacked. They adapted. They overcame. They turned their pain into purpose and their anger into justice. But most importantly, they had shown the galaxy something it had never seen before: conquerors who conquered not to rule, but to liberate. Victors who lifted up the defeated instead of grinding them down. The new order wasn't perfect. There were still problems to solve, conflicts to resolve, and worlds to heal. But for the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy had hope. And hope, as humanity had proven, was the most powerful force in the universe. The line had been crossed. The consequences had been delivered. And from the ashes of the old tyranny, something beautiful had been born. A galaxy where every being could reach for the stars and dream of a better tomorrow. The human accords would endure for millennia, a testament to the simple truth that had changed everything. Freedom was not a privilege to be granted by rulers, but a right to be claimed by all thinking beings.